Okay, so we're in First Peter, verse 13 now, and we're picking up from the last thought. As we are being prepared, we're being made holy. We're going through trials, and they are to purify us, not to look at them in dread and depression, but to realize that this is going to bring us to a place of being as pure gold. And we have the hope and we have the joy that we are going to see Christ again. So therefore, he says this in verse 13. Therefore, prepare your minds for action, be self-controlled, set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. Okay, so in this first part where it says prepare your minds for action, that prepare your minds, that Greek phrase there is actually of girding up the loins of your mind. That's what it literally means. And is the picture of what they would do in the ancient times. Of course, they would have these tunics. And whenever they're getting ready to run or go on long walks on a journey, they would pull up the bottom of their tunic, pull it up between their legs and tuck it into their belt. So their legs were free to run or walk or go forward in whatever action that they were going to do. So it also goes to Luke 12, verse 35 through 36, that says, be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning. So be prepared. That's what he's saying. Be prepared. Prepare your minds for action. Be ready for when he comes, because this whole part is his coming. Jesus warns about for his coming in this section. Like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. So they are ready. They are prepared, knowing that Christ is coming back. And it says be self-controlled, which also is to be sober and clear-minded. So don't be dulled in your thinking or think that this is some sort of, that your mind is being tricked into believing some sort of magical event is going to happen. No, be sober and clear-minded, because when you are, you're going to understand the revelation God is trying to give you. Set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. Now, set is at expectant, forward-looking. It's Peter walked on the water with Jesus. And what happened? When he got his eyes off of Jesus, when he no longer had it set on Jesus, and he looked at the waves, he looked at the circumstances and everything around him, that's when he began to sink. And so I'm sure he probably had this in mind. Set your hope fully on the grace. Do not be looking aside, even for a smidgen, because that little smidgen of him looking dead onto Christ, and then just at one little glance away of seeing something that caught his eye, lightning flashes or a big wave coming up, whatever it was that he saw, it got his mind off, and then he began to look more steadily into the wave, and he began to sink. So he's saying, set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. Another way to look at the being self-controlled is a joyful hope, not in mindless ecstasy, but in alert wisdom. And that's what you need in order to see clearly the revelations God has given in regards to his coming. So we are given hope. Live in it. Set your hope fully on Christ, knowing the revelation, knowing that Christ is going to be revealed, and be ready. I'm going to do a little sidebar here, because this was something I decided to look up and do some computations on. Do you know that if you look throughout all of the teachings of Jesus, throughout all his, well, let's just start with the teachings. If you look through all of the teachings of Jesus from all the Gospels and you put them all together, this is including your parables, every little subject or thematic type of conversation or just teaching that he has had, you put them all together. It totals about 100 of those teachings. Now, if you take those 100 teachings and you go and just pull out only the ones that he talks about the kingdom of darkness or of the enemy in any sort of fashion, there's only 10% of those, is actually about 10 teachings that were references. Let's put it that way. It's really only 10 references, because it's not even full teachings that he does in this regards. It's almost a sidebar for most of it. But there's only about 10 of that. That's 10% of Jesus' teachings. The rest of the teaching has to do with the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, how to live and how to walk in faith, to know him. That is his focus. So that's setting your hope fully on the grace of God, not on the things that the enemy is doing. A lot of times, sometimes we try to focus on what is the enemy doing. We want to try to figure out the tactics. We want to go after those things. We want to chase after the root of what the enemy is doing in our lives, instead of setting our hope fully on the grace that has been given through Jesus Christ. I was having this discussion with my mom actually the other day about objects, how sometimes some objects have attachments, whether it be a demonic attachment or a curse on them. But what happens a lot of times is that if we get rid of the object and something is reprieved in the home and we feel like it's lifted off, then, and it might be for a short amount of time, then when it begins to have havoc and chaos again in the home, what we begin to do is start to look for the next object. What is the next object that might have brought this into our home? And we begin to fixate on all these things. But what the enemy is also using in that is, let me lull you into fixating on these things, that you're chasing the objects, you're chasing the enemy, rather than fixing your eyes fully on the grace of Jesus. Now, does God sometimes tell us, you can't make a doctrine out of any of these things of going, oh, we gotta get rid of this stuff because that is what brings in the enemy. Not that there isn't things that we shouldn't bring into our home, but if you begin to fixate on what the enemy is doing and chasing after all these objects or evidences of the enemy at work in our lives, and we try to get rid of those constantly, and that is what we're chasing, or the demonic forces or the curses or any of these things, then what we do is we get our eyes on the waves. We get our eyes fixated on other things rather than fully on the grace of God. And that is when even when you're reading all these epistles that we've been going through, and throughout all of this, the focus has been about our walk with God. There hasn't been any teaching on what is the enemy's tactics. You look through all of this, and none of the apostles, none of these writers have focused on, this is the enemy's tactics, this is how you defeat this tactic and this tactic, and let's look at the strategies, let's lay out the plan, let's see how the enemy works. That's not, we don't see that. The focus is on God. You set your eyes fully on the grace of God and understanding how to live that life, and as he's fixing to go into, be holy as he is holy. If you get on other things, then it's going to cause you to sink, because you will begin to focus on the wrong things instead of on Christ, and you will sink into that which you got your eyes set on, rather than truly setting your eyes on Jesus. Last part here is, he says, as obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy, because I am holy. Now he repeats holy 4 times, and each time is the same Greek word with just different forms, obviously, for who he's talking about, whether it's God or us. And that word holy is to be set apart, not necessarily perfection. This word is about being set apart, being consecrated, being different, unlike other. And that is how God is described. He's so consecrated. He's so different. He doesn't fit into any species. He's not like an angel. He's not like humans. He is other. He is set apart. He's consecrated. He's different. He's unlike. And that's how we're supposed to be as Christians. We're to be so consecrated and set apart that when the world sees us, they see that person is different. They're unlike anybody else I've met, because that is how we're walking in holiness. So we are called to be set apart. And how do we get set apart? We set our eyes fully upon Christ, and that sets us apart from the rest. Just as Peter was set apart from the rest of the disciples that were in the boat, because he chose to set his eyes on Christ. Now, of course, he got those off, but he set his eyes upon Christ, and that's what got him out of the boat. That's what caused him to walk on the water, and what caused him to walk on the water back, because his eyes were then focused on Jesus then. but he was different. He was unlike the other disciples. He stood out. He was set apart and consecrated unto the Lord in that moment, because the rest were behind. The rest were filled with fear, but he chose to walk towards his master and to stay in unity with him. He had to learn through that process of how to do that, which is why he's able to say this: set your mind, set your hope fully on the grace that is given to you when Jesus Christ is revealed. Okay, so we will pick up in verse 17 tomorrow.